Greetings of the day. I welcome you all for session 3 of our course Numerical Methods and Computer Programming. So before start studying the various approximation methods for solving roots of equation, we will have a revision to the fundamentals of roots of equation. So as we know that the quadratic formula, which is written here as equation 1, as x is equal to minus b plus or minus under root b square minus 4ac divided by 2a, can be used to solve the equation which is given in the given as assigned as number 2, which is f of x is equal to ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So the values calculated with equation 1 are called as roots of equation for 2. They represent the value of x that makes equation 2 equal to 0. Thus we can define the root of equation as the value of x that makes f of x is equal to 0. For this reason, roots are sometimes called as zeros of the equation or zeros of the system. Although the quadratic formula which we have seen as equation number 1 is very simple and handy for solving such kind of equations given in equation number 2, there are many other functions for which root cannot be determined so easily. So the equation number 2 can be considered as simple algebraic equation, but for non-algebraic equation which includes trigonometric terms or exponential terms, for such kind of equations it is not that easy to find out their roots. So there are several ways to solve for the roots of algebraic and transcendental equations. For some cases the roots could be obtained by direct methods, as was done with equation number 1. Although there were equations like this that could be solved directly, there were many more that could not. For example, even an apparently simple function such as f of x is equal to e raised to minus x minus x cannot be solved analytically. So in such instances, the only alternative solution is approximated approach or approximate technique, which can be incorporated. One method to obtain an approximate solution is to plot the function and determine where it crosses the x-axis. So that means you have to consider various values of x, and then you have to find out corresponding values of f of x, and then you just have to plot the function with respect to various values of x, and then where you have to check where it crosses the x-axis. So this at this point, which represents the x value for which f of x is 0, is nothing but root of equation, and this method would be considered as the graphical techniques. Although graphical methods are useful for obtaining rough estimation of roots, they are limited because of their lack of precision or the accuracy. An alternative approach is to use trial and error method. This trial and error technique consists of guessing a random value of x and evaluating whether f of x is 0. If not, as in for almost cases, in all cases, another guess is made and f of x is again evaluated to determine whether the new value provides a better estimate of root or not, and then the procedure will be continued. So this process is repeated until a guess is obtained that the results in an function f of x that is close to 0. But such haphazard and random and fuzzy methods are obviously inefficient and inadequate for requirements of engineering practices. Hence, some systematic strategies are required to determine the true root. So now if we consider the example where the model for a parachute, which was derived from Newton's second law, which was used in the previous session to calculating the for calculating the velocity of parachutist. If you could remember that equation, it was V, velocity, equal to g into m, that is gravitational acceleration, into mass of parachutist divided by c, into 1 minus e raised to minus c divided by m into t. If you could remember, the velocity is nothing but dependent variable, time is independent variable, gravitational constant, that is acceleration g, is nothing but a forcing function, and drag coefficient c and mass can be considered as the parameters which describes the response of that particular system or the parachutist. So if the parameters are known, the equation 3 can be used to predict the parachutist velocity as a function of time, which we have done in the previous sessions. Such computations can be performed directly because V is expressed explicitly as function of time. That is, it is isolated on one side of equal sign. That means the V is isolated alone on the left hand side of the equation. That is why it is called as, it is expressed as explicitly as function of time. However, suppose we had to determine the drag coefficient for a parachutist of a given mass who attained a prescribed velocity in a set time period, then the equation 3 provides the, as we know, this equation 3 provides the mathematical expression or representation of interrelationship between various parameters and the system variables. It cannot be solved explicitly for the drag coefficient. You can try it. There is no way to rearrange the equation so that C is isolated on the one side of equation or on the one side of equal sign. So for such cases, C is said to be implicit. This represents a real dilemma because many engineering design problems involve specifying the properties or composition of a system, which can be represented by various parameters, to ensure that it performs a desired it performs in desired manner. That means, as it was predictable by the by considering the combination of response of various or different variables. Thus, these problems often require the determination of implicit parameters. So the solution to the dilemma is provided by numerical methods for roots of equation. It can be provided by the Newton-Raphson method or Regula-Falsi method or successive approximation method, or it can be bisection method. So to solve this problem using numerical method, it is conventional to rearrange the equation 3 in such fashion that the function of C can be expressed in terms of all other variables. So this can be done by subtracting the independent variable which was isolated on the left hand side of equation, that was V. We have to subtract that V from both sides of the equation. That will give us f of C is equal to g minus C into 1 minus e raised to c divided by m into t minus V. As we have subtracted V from the both sides, on the left hand side you will get 0, and on the right hand side the V will be subtracted from the whole equation. So the value of C that makes f of C is equal to 0 is therefore considered to be the root of equation. So this value also represents the drag coefficient that solves the design problem. Now let us try to understand what is meaning of algebraic and transcendental equations, which we have used in the previous 2-3 slides. This term was used in previous 2-3 slides. So by the definition, a function given by y is equal to f of x is algebraic if it can be expressed in the form of fn y raised to n plus fn minus 1 y raised to n minus 1 plus various other terms, and then you can get finally it as f1 into y plus f0 is equal to 0, where fi is nothing but and the nth order of the polynomial in x. It is nothing but the order of the polynomial in the given variable x. The polynomials are a simple class of algebraic functions that are represented by in general form as fn x, or fn of x is equal to a0 plus a1x plus a2x square plus take terms in such fashion, and then finally we will write it in generalized form as an into x raised to n, where n is nothing but the order of polynomial and all a's are nothing but constant. So some specific examples of algebraic equation can be seen here, as f2 of x is considered to be 1 minus 2.37x plus 7.5 x square, and another equation you can see here as f6 of x is equal to 5 into x square minus x cube plus 7 into x raised to 6. Now on the other hand, a transcendental function is one which is non-algebraic. So this can include trigonometric, exponential, logarithmic, and some other type of function, the parameters or functions. Some of the examples are given here. F of x is equal to ln x square minus 1, or it can be e raised to minus 0.2x sine into sine 3x minus 0.5. So roots of equations may be either real or it can be complex. Although there are cases where complex roots of non-polynomials are of interest, such situations are less common than for the polynomials. So as a consequence, the standard methods for locating roots typically falls into two categories, which is given here. So the first is determination of real roots of algebraic and transcendental equations, where these techniques are usually designed to determine the value of single root on the basis of the previous knowledge of its approximated location. And second is where determination of all types of real and complex roots of polynomial. So in these methods are specifically designed for polynomial and can be systematically determine all the roots of the polynomial rather than determining a single root which can be given as an approximated location. But for our subject, we are restricting the study only to the finding out single root for algebraic and transcendental equation. We will not going for finding out all roots, all real roots or complex roots of polynomial. It is not included in the syllabus. So the numerical approach or approximation kind of approach to find out roots of equation includes basically two methods. The first method is labeled as bracketing method, where this method starts with the guesses, basically two guesses that brackets or it contains the root and then systematically reduce the width of that particular bracket. So two specific methods are to be studied in the bracketing kind of approach. One is bisection method and another one is false position method. Now on the other hand, open methods are nothing but it involves systematic trial and error iterations, but do not require that the initial guesses bracket the root. That means open methods always involve guessing a single we can say a single guess for value of x, and then finding out the respective value of that function. That is why it is called as trial and error method. But along with that, it is called as systematic, because you cannot even if you change even if you select the initial guess of x randomly, but the next in the next iterations the value of x will be determined systematically. For second time, if your answer is not equal to 0, then you don't have to select your second guess randomly, but that guess will be dependent on the previous guess, and hence it is called as systematically. So these methods are usually more computationally efficient than the bracketing methods, but that they do not always work. So there are three methods included in the open kind of approach, which is called as one point iteration or successive approximation method. The another name of one point iteration is successive approximation method. Many times in gate examination or even in the regular examinations, if the word used as one point iteration, or many times it can be used as successive approximation. So both are same. The name of the method is only different, but the method is same. Another method is Newton-Raphson method, and the third method is secant method. So before going to study the open and bracketing method, let us go for considering a graphical method. A simple method for obtaining an estimate of the root of the equation f of x is equal to 0 is to make a plot of a function and observe where it crosses the x-axis. This point, which represents the value of x for which f of x is 0, provides the rough approximation of the root. So graphical techniques are of limited practice value because they are not precise. However, graphical methods can be utilized to obtain rough estimates of the roots. These estimates can be employed as starting guesses for the numerical methods. That is, in bracketing methods, for bisection method and for regular falsy method, you need to guess the two initial values of x, but for that purpose you need to have some graphical method to guess those particular initial values of x. Aside from providing rough estimates of the root, graphical representations are important tools for understanding the properties of function and anticipating the pitfalls of the numerical methods. The pitfalls is nothing but the limitations of numerical methods. So now we will be able to visualize it using with respect to this diagram. So for example, which is shown in the figure, depicts the number of ways in which the root can occur, or it can be absent in an interval prescribed by a lower bound, that is xl, and an upper bound, which is xu. So this is lower bound and upper bound is nothing but two initial guesses. We can say one is at lower bound and another one is at upper bound. So the figure B, if you see this figure, it shows that a case where a single root is bracketed by negative and positive values of f of x. Now let us assume that this particular line, dotted line, is considered to be the xl, that is the lower bound, and this particular line, another dotted line, is considered to be the upper bound, which is nothing but xu. So if we consider xl as initial guess 1 and xu as initial guess 2, we will be able to find out their respective functions. If you know the value of xu and if you know this function as f of x, then you can put this value of xu and you can get answer for this particular value of x. You can get the answer or response as this point. Then similarly for the another case, which is xl, you will be able to find out it the respective response, which is represented by this point. Now if you consider the signs of this response and sign of this response, you will find that the sign of this particular instance is positive and this particular instance is negative. So that means in between xl and xu there must be one point where your response is crossing the x-axis, because one function is having positive sign and another function is having negative sign. So that means your two initial guesses xl and xu are correct. However, if you see the figure D, the function of xl and function of xu are also on the opposite sides of x-axis, shows three roots occurring within the interval. So it is not necessary that your one function if it has positive value and one function if it has negative value, only one root is presented. असं काही होत नाही, म्हणजे असं असेलच असं नाही. It can also be case of D, where you can see the function started like this, it crosses your x-axis for first time at this point, then it goes to the other part, again it crosses the x-axis at this point, again it go to the other part, and again it crosses the x-axis at third point, and then it goes to another part. So that means if your signs of functions of initial cases are one if it is positive and another one it is negative, then it can be a case where the three roots can also be lie within the intervals, this kind of intervals. Now if you consider a general case where f of xl and f of xu have positive signs, we can conclude that there are an odd number of roots in that particular interval. So the conclusion is, if your signs of f of xl and f of xu, that is initial case, function of initial case 1 and function of initial case 2, if the signs of both functions are opposite, then we can conclude that the number of roots which lie in that particular interval are nothing but in the odd number, because here you can see only single root is located, but in this case there are three roots are located. So 1 and 3 are nothing but the odd numbers. Now but let us consider the case of even numbers. So for that particular case we need to consider case or type C or type A. So if you indicate or if you observe the graph which is shown in A and C, you will find that f of xl and f of xu have same sign, because f of this is xl, function of xl is represented by this point, and function of xu is represented by this particular point. So if you observe that as the function sign of both the functions is same, there can be a case that no root will be there, or if you see the case C, or if you observe the case C, you will find that here also the sign of function of xl and xu both is positive, but there can be a case two roots can be lie within this interval. So it is but obvious, because as your response has crossed the x-axis at this point, then it follow this line and again it crosses the x-axis at this point. So and now it is increasing. So there is no case where it is again coming to the opposite part of the x-axis, and there might be a case where the number of roots can lie as good as. So what we understood from all four cases is that the sign of functions for initial case 1 and initial case 2, if the sign of both functions is positive, then there can be a case either no roots or even number of roots in between the two values of initial case. On the other hand, if the values if the signs of functions of two initial cases, that is the lower case and the upper case, if it is opposite, if it is different, one is positive and another one is negative, one is positive and another one is negative, then for such cases either single root will be there or multiple roots will be there, but then the number of roots will be odd number. So it is written here, you can see it again. So if in general we can say function of xl and function of xu have opposite signs, there can be a case that an odd number of the roots present in that particular interval. So now if you consider the another example where the functions that are tangential to the x axis, which you can see in the case A, and discontinuous functions that can violate the principles which we have just now studied in the previous slides. Why? Because if you can see here, the function which is represented in case A, where the sign of initial case xl is positive at this point, then it process at this particular point it is exactly 0. Again it increases on the positive sign on the first quadrant, and then it comes to fourth quadrant again. So for an example of function that is tangential to the axis is the cubic equation which is represented here, which is x minus 2 into x minus 2 into x minus 4. So if you notice that x is equal to 2 makes the two terms in this polynomial which is equal to 0. So mathematically x is equal to 2 is considered to be the multiple roots. On the other hand, if you consider the case B, again you may notice that the sign of function xl is negative, and on the other hand the sign of function of xu is also opposite, that is positive, but you will never reach to the roots, so it may violate the principles which we have seen in the previous slides. So now let us consider the graphical approach which is to be used for finding out the function of f of c for the parachutist example. So the question is, use the graphical approach to determine the drag coefficient c needed for a parachutist of a mass m, which is equal to 68.1 kg, to have a velocity of 40 meter per second after free falling for the time is equal to 10 seconds. The acceleration due to gravity is nothing but 9.8 meter per second square. So I'll put all the values in the equation. I'll get it as f of c is equal to 9.8 into 68.1 divided by c into 1 minus e raised to minus c divided by 68.1 into 10 minus 40. So when I simplify this particular term of c divided by 68.1 into 10 and even this multiplication, I'll get equation as f of c is equal to 667.30 divided by c into 1 minus e raised to minus 0.146843 c minus 40. So now what we have to do is, various values of c can be substituted into right hand side of the equation, which will give you the function f of c. So what we will do is, we will start guessing the values of c starting from 4. You can start it from 2 also, there is no problem. So I am starting it by initial guess as 4. So what I will do, I will put value of c as 4 in this particular equation here also. So 667.38 divided by 4 into 1 minus e raised to minus 0.146843 into 4 minus 40. So after putting the value of c as 4, I will get answer for the f of c is equal to 34.115. Now let us consider the constant step size for initial cases of c and consider the next value of c as 8. Again put this value of 8 in the previous equation, you will get f of c is equal to 17.65. Now if you observe the sign of f of c for 4 and 8, it's same. that means both are positive. So in between 4 and 8 there will not be any root. As we are dealing with only single root, we will assume that there is no root bracketed in between 4 and 8. So let us go for next value. If I consider it is to be 12, then the answer of f of c will be equal to 6.067. Now here you can observe that when your interval is interval of c is varying from 8 to 12, the value of function is now getting reduced. Here also you can see for 4, though it is positive, but the value of 34 has been decreased to 17, and now for 12 it is again decreased to 6. So that means obviously if you increase the values of c, automatically at some point you will get the opposite sign, where we can assume that the interval where your sign is changing can be considered as two initial guesses. So for value of c, if we consider it as 16, and if we put c as 16 in the previous equation, you will get answer as minus 2.269. And if you consider it as 20, then your answer is minus 8.401. So now what we will do, we will plot this point on a graph. So let us consider values of c on x-axis and values of f of c on y-axis. Let us plot the value. When c is 4, the value is 34.15. When it is 8, value is 17.65. When it is 12, value is 6.06. When it is 16, somewhere here, the value is minus 2.2, and when it is 20, the value is minus 8.4. So now if you observe the graph, it crosses the response, it crosses the x-axis at this particular point, which is nothing but point in between 12 and 16. So the resulting curve crosses the c-axis between 12 and 16. So by visualizing the inspection of a plot provides the rough estimation of the root as 14.75. Now you should ask me question, how this 14.75 is written, or how it has been estimated. Since it is a graphical approach, you have to observe the point where it is crossing the x-axis. So I assume this is a graph paper, so you can measure the places after 12, and of course it is depends on the list count of your graph paper. As your list count of graph paper is minimum, your value of the root of equation will be of great accuracy. So the validity of graphical estimate can be checked by substituting it in equation 11. Now what we will do, we will use the value of c as 14.75, and we will check whether we will get answer which is equal to 0 or not. So what we will do, we will put the value of c as 14.75 in the previous equation, that is 667.38 divided by 14.75 into 1 minus e raised to minus 0.146843 into 14.75 minus 40. So if you see the answer, it is near to the 0, which is 0.059. So again what we can see is, we can check by substituting the value of c in the equation number 4, and whether we will check the value of v is getting as close as to 40 meter per second, because this was given as 40 meter per second. So if your value of v, you are getting it near to the 40 meter per second, then the value of c is correct. You can conclude from this particular example. So what we have done is, we have substituted value of c as 14.75 in equation number 4 in the start of the session, where we had considered the equation for parachutist, and which is nothing but g into m divided by c into 1 minus e raised to minus c divided by m into t must be equal to 40. So here also we are getting value is equal to 40.059. We can consider that this root of equation which we have computed from the graphical method can be acceptable. But if you can see, if you want to get the value of v as same as 40, absolute 40 value, then obviously accuracy has to be increased, and it may not be possible by graphical method. Hence we need some systematic approach to find out the roots of equation. It can be a trial and error method, but it is systematic. That is what we are going to study from the next session. So in the next session we will be starting with the bracketing method as bisection method and the regular falsi method, and after that we will be going for the open method, that is Newton-Raphson, secant and successive approximation. Thank you so much for your patient listening. See you again.